All right. So as I said, my name is William. I'm going to be your instructor. And so if you guys needed to sign up for any additional Academy classes, or if you guys wanted to, I do highly recommend it. They are fantastic resources for learning a lot more about what you can do with the database. You can do so at bloomerang.co/academy. We also have our knowledge base and our support portal, which are available to you. You can access both of those by clicking on that question mark icon at the top of your database and then selecting the help and videos option. If you'd like to get in contact with support directly, there's the option for email support and a live chat online. Choosing help and videos takes you directly to our knowledge base where you can search for some of the things that we'll be showing you today. And we on the support team would be more than happy to provide any of that information to you as well if you email or chat in. This is our headquarters building right here. You can normally find me right here in this little office. So yeah, welcome to Mass Email Design Tips. So on our agenda today, we're going to talk about some general design tips, as well as go over some design resources that will really help your emails pop. We'll talk a little bit about some best practices and a little bit about the best ways to design your emails in Bloomerang. And we're also going to take some time to go over some of those things that we talked about, like touch on a couple of those tips and tricks so that we can make sure that you're able to see those in action. Now, if you guys do have any questions as we're going along, please feel free to put them in that chat. Always happy to answer those. As well as towards the end there when we're working in those emails, if there's anything in particular that you want to see or that you wanted to know if it's possible to do in those emails, be more than happy to go over that as well. So in today's world of constant connectivity, you don't always have a lot of time to make an impact with your email marketing. People are often inundated with hundreds of emails each and every day, and you want to make sure that they have time to read your email because most of them rarely read the entirety of an email, especially if it's a marketing message. So if your subscribers are tickled enough to open your email based off that subject line, it should be very clear without reading the entirety of that email what exactly their next action that you want them to take is. Using clear headlines, call to action buttons, bullet pointed lists, and links can all help increase your scannability. And especially when you're using, like in particular, you want to keep that email limited to about 2 fonts. The reason being that you can have something bold for your headlines that'll be sort of like attention grabbing. And you can even really make that impact by using just about 3 colors in there. You could have one for your headlines, one for the basic text that's going into your email, and then one is the color for your links. Those help make really defined areas for your constituents so that they know exactly what's what when they're receiving those emails. Now you also want to make those links really obvious too, either by turning them into buttons, like ones that'll say like donate now if you're sending out a solicitation-based email, or if you're doing a link, you want to make it, a nice color that's bold enough to stand out from the background of your email. That way they know, oh, hey, if I click here, I know exactly where this is going to take me. So in that email, you're also going to want to limit your stories and calls to action to about 5 or less, and you want to keep the text for those to a relative minimum. The purpose of e-newsletters is no longer to provide a lot of news, but rather to regularly remind your supporters that your nonprofit is doing good work and to inspire them to get involved. So you want to focus on about 1 to 5 stories or calls to action. And again, you want to keep that text to a relative minimum. You don't need to give them like the full story in that email. You could keep it to like about a paragraph or so and then link it to the rest of that story on your website. That way you're driving the traffic there. It helps keep your constituents engaged. Because people nowadays in those emails, they don't read as much as they used to. And a lot of that text is going to be overwhelming, especially if it's just online on that page. So when it comes down to that, you want to make sure everything is kind of simple and shortened up so that you're getting your major point across. So by stories, Iman, what I mean is, like if you say you had like an article on your web page or like that you were putting in there about how about something that your organization did. like say your organization had like a major volunteer day and you wanted like people to see information about that, you could have like a little like a blurb on your website about that, and you could put like the first two sentences of that in your email with a little link to that to have them click on it so that they go to that and they'll have more of that connection with you because they're reading that story. They're essentially reading that like article that your organization wrote to help show how impactful you guys are being with the community. One of the other things that's really important is using that 60-40 text to image ratio. Because images, they're great. And as the saying goes, they're worth 1,000 words. But you don't want to rely too heavily on those images. The entirety of your email shouldn't really be composed of those images, because if you take those images away from the email, is it still compelling? In most cases, it's really not going to be. And so you'll want to have a fix for that. And using a little bit of that 60-40 text-to-image ratio is a great way to do that. So with those images too, you're going to want to make sure that you use alt text, essentially sort of like captioning it in there. When you add in an image, it'll give you like an option to put in a description. If you put something in there, like say you had somebody who was working at a community garden and you took a picture of it and you really want to share that, you could put in the person's name, and have in like working at the community garden. Because sometimes not all images are going to load when you open the email. And sometimes your constituents may have a little thing up at the top that says display all images. And when that happens, they're not going to see anything in that email except for just those little placeholders. And if you have text in there, they'll at least know that that's something that they want to click on, that they want to see. One of the other reasons you're going to want to use that 60-40 text-image ratio is it's one of the best practices that's floating around, because emails that have a lot of images and don't have a lot of text can raise a red flag for spam filters. So the theory behind that is because a lot of spammers would send out emails with just large images where they'd have everything that they wanted to get inside, because the email filters don't scan the images themselves for that text, and so those programs couldn't read the content. So you're going to want to send out an email that isn't just all images, but just has a little bit of text in there to make sure that you can help avoid those deliverability issues. Now, more and more people are opening their emails on mobile devices, so you absolutely have to make sure that your emails are optimized for those mobile devices. Using a one-column template is great for that because it'll just display right in there. And you'll also want to make sure that you keep those links either with mobile view or that you use like the buttons so that they're very large for them to see on there and so that those are tappable. It makes them very sort of finger friendly so that you can just mouse right over it and you can click right, well, mouse, but move your finger and then click right on top of that to have that go. Also keeping your text at a nice size, not too big, not too small, is going to help with that readability. I see we had a quick question. Large image that shows off all of our emails from each employee when we send something. No, that should be fine so long as it isn't the only image in there. Or sorry, not just the only image, but the only thing in there. If you have a little bit of text, it should be okay. Sometimes it'll depend, again, it'll depend on the email provider as to how it decides what to flag for spam. But for the most part, that would go through. Yes, my apologies, Ria. The question was if we have a large image that shows all of our emails from our employees when they send something out, would that go to spam? And so again, it really depends on those, it'll really depend on the email provider. So long as you have some text in there, it should help make sure that that is delivered. The ideal size, what is the ideal size for a font or for the text? That honestly depends. Personally, I would say about 16 to 20 pixels, somewhere around there. 16 pixels is about 12 in terms of font, and 20 is about 15. And that makes sure that it's large enough for people to be able to read, whether they're on their mobile device or on their computer. But it's not too small. It doesn't get into like that 10 and 8 point where it becomes definitely a little bit harder to read. What is the best text size for mobile? Again, I would say probably anywhere between 15 to 20 pixels, which translates to about 12 to 15 point font. Would be the best sizes for that. Do the 2-column templates provided by Bloomerang automatically reorient for mobile devices? No, they do not. They are not mobile optimized, and so that's why we recommend using single column in Bloomerang, because that just has that one set display there. If they turn their device, it should automatically reorient the email in the program that they're using, so that it's displayed in that same way, so long as they have their screen rotation on. But again, they may have to like shrink or enlarge depending on how that email is being displayed in there. Another thing, that's important on designing for mobile would be making sure that you have white space to clearly define your content. So in between each section, there's going to be a small amount of white space, but you could put in a separator to help make sure that each one is sectioned off so that they know like, oh, this is all about this section here. This one's about, this one, and going all the way through. Another thing that definitely helps is making sure that you have like spacing in between your articles. So if you have two of them in the same section, using enter twice or shift enter twice to give yourself a little bit of space so that it clearly separates those is a fantastic way to help make sure that you're showing those spaces. So we do have some really good design resources here. Whoops, sorry, if you'll give me just a second. Here we go. Okay. And so if we hop over into here real quick, we do have a free download button for our Donate Now kits. Sorry, that's not coming through the way that was supposed to. My apologies. Let me go back to that. Okay. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So as I mentioned, we do have the free Donate Now button, which allows you to get all of the donation buttons that we have. It's absolutely free, and so you just enter in your name, your email address, and your organization name. And once you click Submit, that'll take you to a download page where you'll be able to see all of that. We also do have, as I mentioned, the pixel to point converter. And so if you enter in the number of pixels that you're wanting to use for the text, that will then, when you click Calculate, will give you the exact point size that it was. And you can do that in multiple versions as well. You can either set it up as the pixels and then convert it to points, or you can set it as points and convert it to pixels. It works both ways for that. You can also use the image color picker, which is fantastic. I love this one. So say you have your organization's logos, but you don't know what those exact colors are and you want to make sure that your email has your organization's colors. You can upload your image into there, and then when you click on this, of course it decides to be temperamental at this point, when you click on that, it'll give you the exact color that you clicked on. So if we click over here onto those sort of more grayish white clouds, it'll give us that exact color there. And you're going to want to use the HTML codes. All of those colors will be using hex. And so you can see if we click down here, it'll give us that one. It's a really great tool for being able to find the exact color that your organization uses. Now, you may already know your color, and so using RGB to hex would work for that as well. If colors are in RGB, you just plug them in, and then click Convert to Hex, and it'll give you that exact color as to what it's supposed to be in the hex code so that you can add that in. Whoops, I believe I might have lost you guys there. Sorry if you give me just a second there. Okay. My apologies. Okay, I am so sorry about that. Glad you guys are able to see the screen again now. So we'll touch on those in just a few minutes. We'll come back over to those, and I'll show those to you guys again. I do sincerely apologize. All right. So some of the other things, resources that we have available are like our best practices for email templates, and those have some really nice. They have some really nice resources for that in there, like telling you the exact image sizes you should use in the 1 or 2 column templates, which we'll go over. You know, some good ideas on how you should send those out and that sort of information. We also have the email message templates provided by Kivi LaRue. Now, Kivi LaRue Miller is the founder of the Nonprofit Marketing Guide, which helps nonprofit communicators both learn their jobs and love their jobs. She's the award-winning author of 2 books for nonprofit marketing, as well as fundraising, and has her top-ranked daily blog. I'm going to go ahead and, once we're out of this base presentation here, I'm going to go ahead and put the links to her blog in there for you so that you guys will have access to that. It is a fantastic resource, and I cannot recommend enough. One of the other things, yeah, Iman, you mentioned Mail Tester here, and it is absolutely fantastic. Mail Tester is perfect for helping check your emails. It'll help you. It'll give you a score out of 10, and it'll tell you, how well your email does on that, whether or not it passes the sort of basic spam tests, and if there are any issues with it, it'll tell you exactly what those are. So it is a great resource, and we'll touch on this as well. I highly recommend using Mail Tester along with your send test option in those emails. So when you're on the design portion of your email template, there's a little button on there that says Send Test, and that'll allow you to send that test to up to 3 email addresses per sending of the Send Test button. Putting the Mail Tester email address that it gives you in there to help check that, as well as sending it to yourself or sending it to another coworker, if you want to have them double check it and make sure that everything looks good or see if there's anything that they would recommend changing about it, is great for that. The one thing it doesn't do when you click Send Test is it doesn't fill in any of the fields. So if you have any fields that you want to see how they look when they're filled in, you can create yourself as a constituent and make sure that you have any information that on your profile that would fill in those fields. And then you could use that to make sure that you have that going. Megan, I will be sending out that presentation a little bit later, I believe in about a week or so after this, so that you'll be able to have access to those. I can also send those to you as well. Go ahead and send an email, if you wouldn't mind, to support@bloomerang.co, and I'll make sure that I provide you with those emails. And actually, if anybody else wants the list of those full links as well, and I can drop those in the chat. As we go to the next, or when we go to the design portion, we'll put those in. So another really good resource that we have is the 5 Steps to a Great Nonprofit Email Newsletter. And this is one of our Bloomerang blogs. But the main points of that in here are that you want to set the right goal for your newsletter. You want to make sure that you're meeting that every time you send that out. And you also want to make sure that you write it for a specific group of your constituents. When you're segmenting your emails to go out to just your volunteers, you want to make sure that everything that's in there is pertinent to them. Also, you want to make sure that you're promising great content to your constituents and that you're delivering that on time. So if you have a weekly email, try to send it at the same, around the same time on the same day every week. You don't want to send it either too far in advance or too late, just because the repetition gets people used to that and they'll expect it to come in at that certain time, and that'll make them more likely to click on that. You also want to make sure that everything is simplified and shortened. And again, that just comes down to like maybe putting in like a paragraph or two and then directing them to your website so that they know here's where I go to read more of that, so that you can get across those major points that you really want in your email. And finally, you want to plan and integrate. You want to make sure that you have everything all ready to go at that right time. And you want to make sure that you have that all integrated with your website, with your Twitter, those things that'll make sure that people are able to reach that. So let's take a look here at this email from the National Park Service and tell me what you guys think. Like, is this busy? Is this clean? Is this something you'd want to read? Like, what catches your eye about this email? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pictures are absolutely fantastic. They really are good. Yeah, Sarah and Casey, exactly right. It is very busy. It's kind of all over the place. If you look at that first section just below their banner image, you've got a whole section of links right here, which are great, but you've also got a lot of extra stuff going around. And if you look off to the right side in between those two pictures, you'll see that there's a little box with the blue writing in there. And that's one of those ones where the image didn't come through right away. And so it just has that little the placeholder. Yeah, absolutely. It's not very segmented and it's very cluttered. And so they did a little bit of work on that. And if you look at their next year, look at that. Look at how much nicer that is. Everything is in alignment. It's, short, succinct with those little buttons that immediately grab your eye that say, learn more or make your plans. Everything is just so much cleaner and it looks so nice. It's very segmented, and that's ultimately what you want. You want something where they're going to look at that and that's inviting. That makes you want to read this. So design is very, very important. When you have that mechanical spacing of those uniform letters and those margins of equal width, it makes the poster kind of monotonous, and it makes it really just kind of boring and kind of blah. And so you can change it up a little bit. You can add in a different font. You can make things stand out by making them bigger or making certain things smaller, making it sort of eye-catching and have it so that people can get into that. But look at what happens when you add in color. Look at how much more inviting it becomes. And it just makes you really want to read this because you have that giant thank you up at the top that's like, hey, pointing this out, that's you. Thank you for this. And it makes them want to get into that. So design is huge. And so for designing in Bloomerang, specifically we recommend using Chrome. It's the one that seems to work best when designing emails. Now, Firefox and Safari do also work as well, and they are absolutely fantastic. But Chrome seems to be the one that works. Aman, you had trouble with Chrome with the color picker. Do you happen to have a touch screen? If so, instead of using your mouse to choose that on the color picker, you would want to use your finger for the color picker, or to use the hex code itself when choosing that. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and if you shoot an email to support@bloomerang.co about that, you can tag me in the subject line, and I'll take a look into that for you and see exactly what's going on with that. So for the images themselves, we want to make sure you want to make sure that your images are are under 1 megabyte in size. That's the maximum size that you can use for a JPEG, a PNG, or a GIF, which are the image files that can be uploaded. So with those, Paint is probably the easiest program if you're using Windows to be able to sort of like resize. You can kind of shrink things down, and you can do a save as for that, which will allow you to see each one separately so that you can double check the file size. If it is just slightly over, you'll get an error message that says your file size is larger than 1 megabyte and can't be uploaded. We had a quick question about how can you move a picture using click and drag in Bloomerang. So unfortunately, there isn't a way to use click and drag once you have your blinking cursor placed in the template and you click on the Insert Edit Image button. It will be inserted at that point. Now the exception to that is text wrapping, where you could highlight once you have the image inserted, you could highlight it and then click on the left justify or the right justify button, and that'll move it either over to the left or to the right, depending on which one you chose. But there isn't a way to just click and drag the image around like you could in like a Word document, unfortunately. Had a question about the image size. So for the images, 1 megabyte total for all images or in the whole, or for all images in the whole email? No, that's per image. So each image, when you're going to upload it into your Bloomerang image gallery, that would be part of, each one would only be able to be 1 megabyte in size when you're uploading the individual ones. Are we looking into allowing larger image photos? I don't know. Honestly, I do not know about that, but I will take a look into that and I will get back to you with that information. As far as I know, there isn't a plan to do that, but we do have a planned integration that'll be coming up that may allow for larger images. So let me do some research on that, and I will get back to you on that, because yeah, I know resizing those images can definitely be a pain, especially if you have it on like your phone and you have to send it to your email and then bring it into the program and go from there. It's a lot of extra work just to get that in. So for the banner images, we always recommend leaving those at 600 pixels wide. And that's just a good size for those email templates. That doesn't like distort the email template at all. That gives you about a good 8.5 by 11 so that it helps with the readability, just like if you were using a letter. And for those 2-column layouts, you're going to want to make sure that your images have a maximum are at a maximum of 265 pixels wide. That essentially, when you have the columns there, make sure that those aren't distorted again above that 600 pixel width. Sorry, we had a question about, are we working on a way to access the image gallery without opening email templates? Again, that's a very good question. I am not 100% positive that that is something we are currently working on, but it is something we can certainly look into. Let me get back to you on that one. If we don't have it currently as a suggestion on our features portal, I'll make sure to add that in for you. And then jumping back in real quick, for those thin and wide layouts, in those thin columns, you'll want to use 165 pixels as the maximum width for your thin column images. And for the wide column, you want to use 375. And again, that's just because it helps make sure that your template does not get distorted. It keeps everything in a nice, clean line going all the way through. All right, so let's take a second here, and we're going to jump into, we're going to go ahead and share my Chrome with you so that we can talk about everything we can do with this. So let's see, you guys should currently be seeing the end memo page, correct? Awesome. All right. So as I mentioned, these were the ones that I was talking about before when you guys couldn't see my screen. So this is the one that helps you convert your pixel size into points so that you know what size text you would be having. So if we go ahead and clear this, and we're going to go ahead and reset that here for you. If you say you were wanting to use like a 20 pixel size and you wanted to see how that would go, you can use this page. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that in here for you. And when you click on Calculate, that's going to tell you exactly what size font it would be if you're using a text-based one. So if it was 20 pixels, it would be 15 point. And same thing with if we were using points here. Say we wanted to use 18-point font, and you also wanted to have your headlines at 36, and maybe you wanted to have like a big banner sort of thing at 48. You can set it on the point side here, and you can do them all together and calculate it out, and it'll bring it right over to there. So you'd use 24 pixels for the 18-point font, 48 pixel for the 36, and 64 pixels for the 48-point font. It's a really great resource just in case you're not sure right off the bat. So imagecolorpicker.com is one of my favorite tools. And this is the one that works great for, like I said, if you don't know like your exact logo color, you can use this to essentially upload your image, and it comes with a base one already, so that you can just click in there, and you'll see that the color here has changed, and now you have the new color code, and that provides you with that hex color right there. Same thing if you click down here, you'll get it again. And it's absolutely beautiful for that, because if you needed your exact colors, you could bring your image right into here, click on that image, and it'll give you that exact hex color. And now same thing with using RGB to hex. If you didn't necessarily have, like if you knew your RGB colors, but you don't have the hex color code for it, you could plug those in, and that would tell you exactly what you were looking for. Whoops, my bad. I used the wrong colors. Let's go with 22, 150. I forgot the hex color code, or I forgot the RGB color system. So there we go. This one gets you a nice teal. And so again, it's another really nice resource to be able to have available to you. Now, as I mentioned, we do have our best practices for email templates. Those are very, very useful and are very, very, they're very good for that. They'll be able to help give you some extra resources when you're designing those and things to keep in mind. Along with that, we do have the email message templates from Kivy LaRue that I mentioned. Those are absolutely fantastic, and they give you a really good idea of how you can reach out and what to put in there so that you're getting that maximum impact for your constituents. Now, she does have her nonprofit blog, as I mentioned. And again, this is a fantastic resource for that. If you have not visited that site before, I highly recommend doing that. It is one of the best sites for that nonprofit marketing that you could ask for. Now, we also talked about Mail Tester as well. This is Mail Tester here. This is the one where you can send your emails to have them checked on to see how spammy those appear to be, or if there's anything wrong with your email, it'll automatically tell you. It gives you the score out of 10. It's relatively easy to read. Once you have copied that and you've sent your email to that and have clicked to then check your score, it'll provide you with a nice breakdown of everything as you go through. And then finally, this was the blog on the 5 Steps to the Great Nonprofit webinar. There we go. And yes, I will make sure that I will send all of those links to all of you after the webinar. That way you'll have access to all of them so that you don't have to just copy them down here. This is just in case you wanted to copy them down now, but I'll make sure that you guys get all of those. All right, so now we have a little bit of time to jump in to the database and go over some things. So sorry, I don't know why that is being finicky at the moment. There we go. So let's go ahead and jump into some email templates. So did you guys have anything that you wanted to see in there? I know for the question that we had about drag and drop, did you want to see like a demonstration of how to do the text wrapping? Okay. So for the text wrapping, let's go ahead and just actually clear out this this block here. So for that, we'll go ahead and add in a brand new block. We'll go ahead and add that in as an article. And so currently it doesn't have an image in it. And so if we were to click right here and place our blinking cursor right there, we can go ahead and grab an image from our image gallery. And we'll go with this one. We'll set that to about, we'll do 365 pixels wide. Okay, so you'll see right now that the text is kind of off to the right, and if we click on update, it's just kind of off there, and you have that weird sort of white space on the side where it doesn't have everything there. So if we click back in, we can highlight that image, and then we can click on Align Left, and that'll push all of that text right up to there. Now the one thing that does, though, is it's right up against your image. It doesn't really give you any space in between. So if we click back on the Insert Edit Image button, we can go over to Advanced, and we could add in some horizontal space at about, say, 5 pixels, and we could add in some extra vertical space at about 5 pixels as well. And that pushes it off just a little bit, so it's not right on there. And so this should hopefully make that a little bit easier for the text wrapping. I know, again, sometimes it can absolutely be a bear to use, especially if it's placed just off center and you really need it to get all the way over. And same thing with that, though. If we wanted it to appear on the right, we could just click on right once it's highlighted and then click update, and it'll wrap it around on the right side. So that's one thing. Another thing that may be useful is I know sometimes people have talked about wanting to be able to double space things in their emails, like with the text. And for that, it gets a little tricky. So let me go ahead and show you one way that you can do that. But keep in mind, this works best for the 2-column email templates where you have like an accent column, because you can double space it in there and not have it adjust the rest of your text. So right now, if we click in here and we look at the text size, we see that we're at veranda and 13 point for the basic paragraph text. One thing you can do to sort of double space that would be in your primary style section. Since you have it set to 13, you could go in here and you could set it to about 20 pixels, which is going to increase the size of that once you click update. But if we go in here and we highlight the text, we can take this back down to 13 pixels. And once we click update, you'll see it essentially has a double space as it's going all the way through. And so that's one way that you can sort of do that. Now, the problem with that, though, is if you're wanting to have your next section not be double spaced, unfortunately in the 1-column email templates or anything where it doesn't have the accent, it does have everything is now up to that 20 size, and so you would have to go in and you would have to adjust this back down to 13, or you'd have to leave it at 20. So that's something that you'll want to keep in mind for that. Had a question about, can you show me how to make a donate button like you suggested previously? Yes, absolutely. So what we can do is, let me check my image gallery and see if we have that in there. If not, we can, we do, perfect. So this is that, essentially that same sort of like donate button that we saw from before. This is one of the ones that you can download as part of that template, and we'll go ahead and bring that down to about 250, and we'll leave it on the constrained proportion, so it's nice and small. So with the donate button, it'll give you an image that you can upload into your image gallery, and you'll do that by clicking on that image icon, and then selecting the little folder with the magnifying glass. And then you'll click on Choose File to upload your image. Once you've chosen your file and you've clicked on the Upload button, it'll then appear here in your gallery. You can click on that then to insert it in. And then we'd go ahead and click OK. Since we've already got that in there, that would have Cancel. So now the image is there, but it's not actually linked to anything. It's not quite linked to your donate page just yet. So we'll want to make sure that we click on that to have it highlighted, and then we can click on the Insert Edit Link button. And so from there, we could put in google.com, say, and you could put in a title of, of Go to Google. Now, the one it says it seems to be an external link. Do you want to add in the required prefix? Sure, we'll go ahead and add that in. You can essentially copy down any of the things in there. Like if we wanted to take it to the RGB hex, we could copy that in. And, whoops, there we go. We can use that instead. And we could do that as the hex color. And then we'll click OK. And we'll click Update. So now when we click over that, you'll see that it has the link. And you can even right-click on it and select the option for Open Link in New Tab. And that'll take you right to it. Whoops, there we go. OK. So for now, let's go ahead and log back in, and we can talk about a few other things or see if there's anything else that you guys want to see in there. So were there any other sort of things that you guys had questions about with the email templates? Did you have any questions about like the templates themselves? Or like customizing any of them, like removing any of the banner images or anything like that? My opinions on separators. Oh man, I love separators. Legitimately, I absolutely love them. It helps make sure that everything is segmented. So if you had like the email here from your monthly newsletter, if that was the header you were going with, I always recommend adding in a separator there so that you can keep that right at that section. Now, sometimes your separator may not be, maybe you want it to be bolder or maybe you want it to be wider. Unfortunately, there really isn't a way to do that. So you can kind of cheat by making an image that is literally just like by using the nipping tool and bringing up like an image that is just a pure color and bringing that in so that you can have something like that. That's one way to do it, or you could even set the background for a specific thing to be that color to help sort of differentiate it. But separators are fantastic for making sure that everything is separate and so that it makes clearly defined sections as you're going through. Does the contact information at the bottom move? It does not. So this contact information that's at the bottom of your email will always be there. That is required by the CAN-SPAM Act. You can change the information in there by clicking on the settings area of your database, by clicking on that settings icon and then selecting View All Settings. And then in that My Organization tile, when you click Edit, that will have all of that information that's being displayed in there. So if there's anything you wanted to change, you'll be able to change that in there. Is there any way to import an email template? And how do you use email templates other than the ones by Bloomerang? Unfortunately, at this time, there is not a way to do that. We are looking into doing an integration with MailChimp, but that does not have a current timetable for release. That would allow you to use like the MailChimp templates rather than using just the Bloomerang ones if you wanted. But unfortunately, there isn't a way to use like any templates from outside of Bloomerang and send them as an email through Bloomerang. You could potentially like print a PDF, like use the print to PDF function for an email that you've created outside of Bloomerang, and then convert that PDF into an image, and then upload that into your email. But again, you don't want it to be too image heavy. You want to have some text in there so that they don't get flagged as spam. So you'll want to add in just a little bit of text like, some click here's or something like that, or add in some, buttons to make sure that it's not just all that one image that you're uploading. Could it be centered or right aligned? For the donate buttons, yes, absolutely. Or were you referring to the information shown at the bottom with this? Unfortunately, that's always going to be right aligned for the contact information. There isn't a way to have that centered. Is there a way to set a base template? Every time I start a new email, you have to go in and add our brand colors in. Unfortunately, there isn't really a way to set a base template. One way you could get around that would be setting a sort of like base email template that you want to use for like each of the types. Like you could create a constituent, interaction, and transaction-based email and upload that information in there, and then you'd set your colors in that one. You could then make a copy of that email and use that to sort of act as your base, and you could go in and change your details since that'll have that in there, so you could change it to having like the different subject line, the different from name, or the different from email if required. You also want to change the name of the template itself, since that's what will be displayed for you when you're looking at the email templates. So that you'll know exactly what it is. And of course, you can always change that purpose and email interest as needed. Can you insert a logo into the standard footer? Unfortunately, there is not a way to do that. There's not a way to insert the logo into the standard footer. You could put it right above the bottom, though. So you could put it, since this would be like the final one here, you could take that article and you could basically clear everything out, and you could insert your organization's logo into there. Let's see. Okay. For mobile, is the one column format the only one you can use? No, it is not the only one that you can use. You can use any of them, but we recommend using the one column because that is the one that will display best on mobile devices. So we had a question about, can you upload video? Yes and no. You can insert a YouTube video link where you'll be able to search for the YouTube video, and then you'll be able to select that and then add it in. And once you select insert and close, it'll populate that in there. For any videos that are not YouTube, you could insert an image, or you could insert in a hyperlink and use the text of like, click here to watch this video, and have that inserted so that they'll be able to click that and they'll be directed to that video that you want your constituents to see. Yeah, the MailChimp integration is going to be great. Now, we did have a question about the social media sharing buttons. We do actually have those available. So if you have, when you click on one of the article blocks, you'll see the option for Facebook and Twitter. And so if you click on that, that'll insert your Facebook page. Now, it doesn't have my organization's Facebook page already entered in there, just because this is my demo database. But if you set that up in your organization settings, in that settings area of your database, when you click on that, that will insert a little button that will have that in there. And same thing with Facebook. Once you insert that, that'll have that little button on the logo. And so if you wanted, you could add those like right down at the bottom, right above your contact information, and that way it'll be in that little section. Oh, to share in social media. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yes, we do not currently have that. I know that is something that has been requested, and I believe is a suggestion that is in the features portal. I don't know if there are any, if that is currently being worked on, or if there are any plans to add that in relatively soon. But I believe as part of the MailChimp integration, MailChimp does have that option, so it might be available with that. So I'd keep an eye out on that for when that gets announced as it's being released, and they'll have more information for that. How to make a copy of an email? Yeah, absolutely. So for making a copy of an email, you'll want to go back to your email templates home. And when you're on your email template, so if there's anything that you wanted to make a copy of, like any particular email, you would go to where you have the little blue button with the down arrow, and that'll give you the options for edit, copy, and preview. So you'll want to go ahead and just copy that right there. And now you'll have one that says copy next to the name. And so when you click on that, it's going to be an exact copy of the one that you had before. The only thing you'd probably want to change are just the names so that you'll know exactly what it is when you're looking at that. And then again, if you needed to change the subject line or the from name or the from email or any of the information in those details, please feel free. It's going to make me choose one. So test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, sure. So it's not going to change anything since we didn't click that one. What about using the Kivy-LaRue templates that we were talking about earlier? Yeah, absolutely. So if we, sorry, it's being a little bit difficult. Let me bring that up real quick. Okay, so for the email templates with Kivy-LaRue, those will give you like little sections on how to do that. So these are different sort of like guidelines on how to set those up. So it won't be the actual like email template itself, but it's going to tell you how you should do this. So like for newsletter A, it's talking about one main success story, and then you're going to have 3 teasers for your website. And so that's how it'll tell you sort of like how you want to set that up. So that's what those are used for. Is those are used to sort of give you like a guideline on different ways that you can reach out to your donors and how to use that. Can we go into email tracking? Yeah, absolutely. We can go into the email tracking details. So let me go ahead and pull up one that I have sent out. Let's go to the email templates. Okay. So if we go into the email tracking, you have all of the different statistics for there. So with each time you send an email, it will have those tracking details listed. So if you sent out an email 5 times like I did with this one, you'll be able to see all of the statistics for those. And so you'll be able to click on that to see exactly the little ring here to see exactly who opened them. If you have any of the statuses below as well, like deferred or dropped, you'll be able to see those, and you'll be able to click on either the ring or you can click on the little header at the bottom, and that'll tell you that information. You'll be able to see like who opened it, who hasn't opened it. You can even click on the statuses up at the top, like launched, queued, sent, and opened. Those will tell you that information for each of those stages. You'll also be able to see how many of your donors clicked on a link, how many have unsubscribed or marked as spam, as well as if they've clicked on any of the links, what their most clicked links are. This is really useful for when you're looking at the tracking information, because that's going to help tell you what's reaching your donors and like what's getting them engaged. It's a really nice tool for that. When do I think the MailChimp integration will happen? I'm not entirely sure because, again, that is something that product is working on, and they don't have a timetable for when that will be released. My best guess will be sometime next year. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly when, though. Yes, you can also use so one other thing for going back to the social media sharing real quick is that you do have the option to get HTML, and that will give you the HTML download file for your email. And so in here, if you wanted to use this to post to social media, post this to your social media, you could, once on here, you can press Control-U, and that's going to give you the source code for your email. You can copy all of this, and then on the back end of your website, on the page where you want that displayed, you can paste this into an HTML block, and that'll display your email on there. It's a very it's a kind of roundabout way to have to do it, but at the moment, that really is the best way to be able to do that at this time. How do you suggest organizing your emails, the drafted emails or templates? Yeah, so that can get a little bit difficult. And as you can see by the email templates that I have in here, they're kind of cluttered around. And if you've sent a lot of them or if you have a lot of email templates, that can definitely cause an issue when you're wanting to view those. So one thing I would recommend, and this is the same thing you can use for like reports and your letters as well, if you use an asterisk, like if we create a brand new one here, we'll go ahead and do just a brand new constituent-based email. So if we put in this name and we'll choose that one, subject line is going to be testing for testing. The from name won't be test. We'll make it easy. If you put in like an asterisk as a special character, or if you put in the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, going down the line, once you have that chosen, once you have that saved, if we go back to that email template list, that's going to display right up at the top. And so you're going to want, like, you can organize them that way. Anything, because they display in alphabetical order, but the special characters will appear first, and then the numbers, and then alphabetical. So those are things that you can, that's one way you can do it. You could use like Z space dash space to push those other ones down towards the bottom. I do agree it would definitely help to have like an email created date that you could sort by and folders. I know that is something we have looked into, and we do have a suggestion for that. And hopefully that is something that will be coming soon. Again, I'm not 100% positive if that is currently being worked on, since I'm not a member of that product team, but it is something that I know they are looking into. There is no maximum number of email templates that can be saved. You can have any number of email templates in your database. But yeah, organizing, making sure they're organized would definitely be having to use like the asterisks and the numbering system to make sure that you know what those are. Okay, let's see. Recommended space for bordering on images and pixels. I say between 5 to 10. And the reason I say between 5 to 10, let's see. Let me see if I can go into one that I have sent out. I think I called that stuff 2.0. Yeah, so this one's mine. So for like the border size, I always recommend leaving it at about maybe 5 pixels, and same thing for the spacing, because if you put in if you put in like 10 would be the maximum. And that's just because if you put in a lot, like you'll see that it pushes it down a little bit. But if we have that sort of text wrapped and you have that spacing there, it pushes it out a lot more than you would think it does. So I'd say anywhere between 5 to 10 is probably best because it gives you a little bit of space, but not a lot. It helps make sure that your content stays in there. If you don't use MailChimp, it's if a question about like you've mentioned the MailChimp integration. What if you don't use MailChimp? So it is something that we would be offering once that integration goes live. It's not something that you would necessarily have to use. If you wanted to stick with the Bloomerang templates, you are more than welcome to stick with those. Just once it goes live with that, you would have the option to have that MailChimp integration. If you choose. And so that would give you access to, I believe, like their templates and their sort of lists and how that's done. Notice that it compares the email that was just sent with the previous release. Did I see that correctly? Yes. When you're looking at the tracking tab, that will show that. So let me go back to that one real quick. I believe that was here. Yeah, so your first sent email is going to be at the bottom of that tracking tab if you've sent it multiple times, and then each subsequent sending of that email will be stacked on top. So your most recent will always be at the top, and everything else that was sent previously will be listed below in their own separate sections. So by the statuses of dropped and bounced, sorry, Dropped would mean that the email is no longer going to be sent to, and that would be that it had a certain number of bounces. Bounces are specifically the reasons why the email was unable to be delivered, either like the constituent's email address, like their inbox is full and they're not able to receive the emails, or sometimes that could also be that like it's an invalid email address, and that would cause that to go through, or potentially like it bounced due to like a spam filter and it just got knocked back. So sometimes those will happen. One other thing that I didn't touch on with that is there's a status of deferred. Deferred means that it wasn't able to go through on that initial try, but it will have it will be trying again for the next 72 hours to send that email through. If it ends up not being able to go through in that 72 hours, that will then convert that deferred status into a bounce. All right. So yeah, it looks like that is about all the time we have for that today. Thank you guys for attending. I really appreciate you sticking with me through those little hiccups that we had going. Once again, thank you guys very much, and I will be sending out that email to you guys next week with all of those links. We did have one last question. Was if someone unsubscribes from your email templates, are they unsubscribed to all email templates? So that depends on what they unsubscribe from. If they completely opted out of your emails, yes, they will be completely opted out from receiving emails from your organization. It will not send them to them unless it's the like automatic confirmation for the donation receipt. If they did like the online donation. If they have if they've opted out of like a specific email preference, that means when you're creating your email, if you chose, like say you chose event and you had somebody who opted out of events, that particular constituent would not receive the email. Now, if you'd chosen media and reporters and events, and they still have media and reporters on there, they'd still be able to receive that. So, because even though they've opted out of event, they still have media and reporters going. So, managing those email preferences, and especially when you're doing, or rather when you're choosing those email interests, especially when you're doing the like confirmation emails, if you're using a custom confirmation email for an online form, I always recommend choosing all four, and that way it gives you the best chance of reaching your donor to make sure that they're able to receive that confirmation so they know their donation was received. All right. So yeah, thank you all for attending. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys soon at more of the Academy classes. Bye.